Ladies and gents, I hope you're all extremely well. Round one is in the books for BBL Supercoach, and I picked up a 1200 score on the dot, which was pretty solid. The main issue was the non-selection of Will Sutherland. I feel like I got most of my selections really good, apart from a couple of the cheapies, but you do have to select those guys and give them an opportunity. They just didn't perform how we would have wanted. But without Sutherland as captain, that was the big issue, obviously, and it was a big turnaround given Tom Curran, we took as vice-captain loop, got the 100 in the first game, 4 in the second game. That really hurt, especially when Sutherland came out and went back-to-back massive scores. I did get some benefit from last night. I had Tim Seifert, who was awesome, and I also had Fergus O'Neill, who got the 3-fer in that game as well. But sitting at 2,129 overall in the rankings, a really solid position right now to be able to attack going into this week. The big question for this week is going to be Matt Short. How do you get him? What do you do to be able to make that massive selection in your side? He comes in at a hefty 289. And just looking at my team, and I know a lot of your teams going forward, that someone like Bo Webster, I think, is a really good target man to move on from at 153. I'd definitely be moving him over a Curran with the role that Tommy possesses there with the bat 7 and bowl 4. And then something I wasn't really looking at just because of the lovely break even, but Tim Seifert, a terrific couple of games from him, but it is a single into a bye. I don't think I'll be holding him through this week because, if we're looking to get a Matt Short, through next week, I should say, because if we're looking to get a Matt Short and then potentially a Maxwell in next week, or, you've got, we just heard that Xavier Bartlett might be a chance of getting into, moving into the test squad as well, so we may lose him. But guys like Paul Walter and these guys on the double in round 3, it might be the correct time to move from a Tim Seifert this week instead, which is not something I was looking at. And getting Matt Short into my team, I can actually go Bo Webster straight to Short with $500 in the bank. But the news that we just heard there of Hamish McKenzie is going to be out with a rib issue, so I would then have McKenzie, Liam Scott. Consis looks like we're going to lose him hopefully after this round, so we get him for one more hit out. It makes some more cash, and then we can move him on, and then Jake Doran as well. So that would be a lot of people I'd have out. So I do think that moving on from a McKenzie this week is the best decision for my team long term, and therefore I may need to move on from Seifert. And if I don't, then it's probably going for a couple of the cheaper guys that are available in the Weatheralds and the Keaton Jennings, in Boyces. These types of players could be the potential options in my side this week, instead of being able to get the big dogs in the Barrendorfs, Lance Morrises, Ollie Popes, these types of players like that. But let's do a quick look at how all the leagues set up. And as I say, guys, 135, almost 136k in the bank. And if we're looking at the BBL Podmasters, we had Dr. Kando Kane is in 6th position, followed by Toby in 36. So 2 guys in the top 50 is absolutely incredible. How that played out. Brainball in there at 4th. If anyone watches Insight, they did a good job. I'm not sure who Patrick is, but well done to him in 130th. And then the 2-time BBL champ there, Andrew Langley, with an incredible score in the end. He had the captaincy on Will Sutherland. And the sad thing about all this is obviously if you didn't vice-captain Curran, usually meant that you captain somewhere else. And the people that did end up captaining Will Sutherland in that, the push comes to shove and had to select someone from Renegades. He was the all-rounder there that is coming off injury and stuff. So it was a massive gamble, but it paid off tremendously with the 217. So that was really sad to watch last night, especially when he was 2 for 1 off 2 overs. And I was like, sweet, just leave it at that. Then they couldn't get the last couple of wickets, and he came on for that third and picked up another wicket, which gave him the strike rate, the economy rate bonus, the extra 10, all happening. So a little bit frustrating on that front, but congrats to everyone who did captain him and picked up almost 30k in rises as well. But just the way that he plays this game is absolutely incredible, that he leaves everything to the last second. He's waiting to see who misses games, and you can see that here with the loop. So he had Connolly and Richardson in emergency, and he spoke that he was going to try and find guys to pop in his team that are likely to play across the rest of the season. And the way that he went in the end was Johnson was definitely not playing, and he was waiting to see what happened with Munro. And then when Munro was out of that game, he decided to bring Munro and Johnson in for the 2 loops in bat and the bowl two guys that have doubles in round 3, but they're also two just really solid scorers, and he didn't end up selecting guys that are non-batters. And he got, well, it looks like he's got a little bit lucky potentially with Constas. He missed that price rise, but he had Basley instead, who came in and absolutely crushed it. And wicket keeping slot, you had Harper end up scoring runs in the second game, which is the good thing about having two chances, two bites of the cherry, is that you do get that opportunity. And he's a really good guy to follow. Obviously, heading into this week as well, he's sitting there with 5 guys that potentially are going to have doubles unless Nielsen doesn't play. Nielsen will become his looper, but Connolly, Basley if he plays as well, Richardson and Thornton come in for him on the double along with Overton, and then he can make the 3 to 4 trades to get himself a really nice squad coming into this next week, and that has 2 Brisbane Heat players and 1 sixer in Jack Edwards heading into this week. So I just wanted to shout him out there for the tremendous work that he does do on a day-by-day, game-by-game basis in making the correct decisions. He's in a league of his own on a consistency every year basis. So congrats to Andrew for that one there and how he goes about things. But sitting there personally 13th out of the 49 teams, so pretty happy with that setup. Shout out to Mike Hussey. Did get to meet him the other day, but unfortunately an 858 for him there, which is pretty rough for the guys that did pick up a score under 1,000, but hopefully a big bounce back for those guys. There would be a lot of teams in the 7 to 800s, obviously there with 52,000 people, and an 858 is still well in the top half. So it can easily change the next week as well if these guys pick the right captaincy or pick the right guy that comes in and goes bang across the doubles. So that is the Podmasters. And then we've got a couple of my JBFA crews as well. So shout out to those guys in the 2 crews that had a good week to start. I'll go in and discuss after a couple of weeks of games and see where those leagues are at from a head-to-head basis. But yeah, let's go through the buy, hold, sell, which is why we're here. So from the wicket-keeping position, I think really outside of Seifert, Philippi, I think if you've got those guys, you can easily hold. Philippi may be a guy I have to look to sell this week, and that's where just getting the cash available. But obviously holding him is going to be likely a good decision for next week with their doubles. So that's where Seifert may have to go, even with the lovely break even of a -4 in this single game. If he gets that 70, which the way he's playing, you could definitely do, he'll make 18k, which I look at that and it's like, well, it's not absolutely crazy. So he could come out and get a 10 as well, like 1 catch and a duck. Like he could do that and only goes up a little bit. And you're like, oh, damn, I held a keeper bat only guy at 170. So the more and more I look at it, I may, trading him to a Berendorf or something like that sounds absolutely tremendous if it was possible. So anyway, that's the thoughts on that. And Flip Philippi is going to be good for the double next week, obviously. But Seifert, the other options there, you got Jimmy Pearson, who I was looking at starting with this year when I first looked at the wicket-keeping slot before I ended up changing my mind to get Tim Seifert. And then sadly, just wasn't sure where Jimmy was going to bat. But it looks like opener is going to be a slot with Colin Munro at this point. So they're the only 3 guys I would be looking at this point, is just, do you hold Tim? If you do need to trade in for a keeper this week, if you are moving on from whoever it is, then Pearson, I think, is clearly the play this week. He looked really nice up top. I think that batting-wise, yes, that's his highest score, but he averaged 52 in his couple of games last year. He's done really well in the in the Big Bash, without scoring 60s and massive ones that Philippi's had. But over the last year or so, Philippi hasn't been at his best. So I do think that Pearson probably has the slight edge over Philippi, just so with the cash gains you can have, and they both have the same double anyway. So that's the way I would roll in the wicket-keeping position there, and there's no one else you would select. Make sure to sell Wade. It looks like he'll be out for a bit. And the only thing really to look for is Inglis. I do think that he's likely to just play the 1 game, this first game coming up, and is likely to be back in the test squad come game 2. So it's hard to select Inglis, not knowing what's going to happen. And then the only other thought there is just for round 3, with Ben Duckett likely being one of the guns next week that you might want to target at 152k, just have him in the back of your mind as a decision maker. All right, let's move to the batsman and go team by team just to have a quick look at what you might want to see. So we obviously want to be targeting Adelaide and Perth players this week. So let's just have a look at Adelaide first and guys you might want. This is going to help me as well with my trades. But Overton, must have. Make sure you have him in that side. Basley, I think that will be the best game that he plays all year. So keep that in mind. And does he keep his spot down? If he's batting at 8 and bowling 1 over or no overs, which we saw a lot of last year, he just would kind of be there as a backup batsman. Not the super ideal spot. But if you started with him, great. Hold on until anything changes for him. It's just going to be hard to buy him unless we see him. And then, if they see them not picking a Doggett or something like that, then I think you could select him as a buy-in for sure. But it would be not expecting the world. Jake Weatherald, he looked really, really nice in that game on the weekend. So, during the week. It feels like weekend at Christmas time, doesn't it? He's one of those guys that I think that you can slot in. He plays 5 games over the next 3 rounds, so you get 2 doubles out of him and can feel safe enough that he's probably got 2 really good scores in him. He picked up a good one on the weekend, a 65 in 1 hit, and there's definitely other opportunities across those 5 games where he can have 2 or 3 good ones, especially batting at Adelaide, especially batting with Matty Short. They can get off to good starts, and he could be a really nice opening partnership. Hopefully, if you're buying Weatherald, you have Matt Short as well. That they don't have what happened to Hurricanes last night. And we won't talk about that too much, but from the Renegades guys that did dominate. And it was sad that I eventually obviously kept Brown and traded out Tom Rogers pre-game. It looked solid enough in game 1, but game 2, that early 3-for on a hat-trick didn't look so nice. So Weatherald, I think, is a really solid pick. Matt Short, 288k now. He's the best player in the game. So can you avoid him? Same thing, 5 games over 3 weeks, or 3 rounds. Will be your vice captain or captain in game 1. It's hard to stay without him. Probably bowling 2 to 3 overs, opening the batting, the best batter in the comp. Very, very tough to leave out. At this point, can you get him? And do you have enough cash otherwise to move around to get good plays still? So that's that one. Alex Ross, I think he's a guy that will just be solid enough in that sort of 5-6 range, especially when Ollie Pope comes. I think he'll be into that 6 range there, which is probably a bit too low. Fabian Allen injured, gone for the season. Sorry to see that one. Nielsen shouldn't play, I don't think, when Ollie Pope's in there. And then Chris Lynn should bounce back, but 181k, it's a little bit tough to get around, I think, at this point if you're trying to get short. If you're not getting short, Lynn's a good one. Ollie Pope is a good one for that as well. And we may see Darcy Short this evening as well. So keep an eye out for the late mail on that one. So that's the Adelaide team. If we're looking at the Brisbane team, next up on the list in the bat slot. So Pearson was the guy that obviously did well on that front. If you're looking at guys like Paul Walter, wait 1 more week. Does Jack Wood keep that spot? With Munro coming back, that's probably the big question. If he does happen to keep that spot and they move Pearson or someone down, then he could be a buy. Renshaw's still at 67k. Didn't score amazingly well. We picked up an 18 only. Didn't miss his break even by too much. He's someone that you could still potentially look at as a cheap trade-in that has a double next week that you could play on the double. It's probably the main thought on him, and Munro at 130 if he comes back this week. Sweet. Him and Spencer have to go undergo fitness tests to make sure that they're right. So we'll see how that one plays out with those guys, with both of those guys there. But team you will want to look at next week, but it's probably more around the Paul Walter standpoint for them. With Hobart, don't look at any of these guys for a little bit. Just simple as that, I think. None of them did well. None of them look great, to be honest, either. So that's that. For the Renegades guys, in terms of holds from their team, I think Will Sutherland could easily be a hold. If you can do that this week, that would be great, in my opinion. I don't want you to, but hold him with that lovely low break even. Similar to that with Seaford, but Sutherland did even better than that. Crazy they're only 40 apart, but some people had both, which was really tough. Guys like Brown or Fraser McGurk can be held or sold. I do think that, with them being bat only on the single into a buy next week, you would only want one if you do have one of the Renegades batters, I think, and either one, up to you on that one. It's hard to split them apart from price with Fraser McGurk, 9k more expensive, and then the break even a little bit higher as well. So up to you, whichever you think could do better. Bethel's going to be interesting come round 4, I think. Just wait until that. It could be a cheap guy that has a lovely role. And then Laurie Evans and Mac Harvey, nothing special on their front. So that's the Renegades. The Stars, you don't want to look at any of these guys. I kind of mentioned the holds and the sells. You hold Stoinis, you hold Curran, probably holding Harper there. You're selling Webster, probably selling Hilton Cartwright unless you're stashing him on the bench. good to see him okay, fit and alive, thank goodness. And we lose Joe Clark, might lose Tom Rogers, or he might go down the order. So yeah, wait for Duckett and Maxwell and see what happens with those two guys. For Perth, really important team. Obviously, we've got some dual guys in there. Cooper Connolly was the gun. Make sure you target him first as a dual guy for the Perth Scorchers team. You got Hobson in there that picked up a nice one in their game, got 62. I think that'll be one of his biggest scores of the season. And you had Ashton Turner, was really nice. I think out of those two, I would pick Turner. He will bat ahead of Hobson, and the way he batted was absolutely spectacular. But if you don't want to bat a guy that's going to bat 5 or 6, especially when Hardy returns, then probably need to look to the next guys on the list, and the two openers in Keaton Jennings and Finn Allen. If you are not going for Matt Short, then maybe Finn Allen is the play. He has more upside. But Keaton Jennings averages 32 with the bat in T20. So don't forget that just after that one bad score, the 4 in the out with the catch. He could definitely do a job for you at 111k. But again, you're buying a bat-only player. And we may see Hardy this round at some stage. We may see Josh Inglis as well. Unsure at this point, but something to look at with those guys for sure. And then the Sixers, I think the big one you might want to look at is obviously Jack Edwards there at 143k. The tremendous role, could be bowling 4, batting 3, and batting at 3. Onreig's 112k now with that 98. He was absolutely spectacular, but we've seen there's a reason why he's down under 100k to start the season, and is definitely one to potentially have a look at with a terrifically low break even. But him at 4, can he do it back-to-back games or every second or third game? That's probably the question. Do you just wait until next week for a few of these guys? It looks like Hayden Kerr's going to be all right. But if you're going for anyone in this team, it is Jack Edwards first, and I do think it is Joel Davies at 65k second. The worry with Joel is Akil Hussain will be here for round 2. You probably do want to try and wait to see what role he's going to have. Are they going to be playing both spinners? Is Joel Davies going to be there to bat 6 still with Hughes being out? Do they change much with that in terms of his batting slot? And is he still able to get a couple of overs? Because he got 3 overs and batted 6. That was a pretty tremendous role there. Was probably going to be batting 7 with Daniel Hughes if he was fit. So batting 7, bowling 3 overs would be great, but they do have Akil Hussain in that one. And it would be interesting to see if he loses a spot, if Hughes comes out and they just bring Hussain in and he can bat, in that sort of 7 or 8 range. There's a few question marks around that, but I do think Joel Davies, if the role is there, is the guy to pick. And then from the Thunder, the annoying thing with hopefully is we do get Constance for another game. But if we don't, the only other guy you might look at is the cheaper Ollie Davies there. Not cheaper. More expensive than Joel, but cheap in this side at 78k for Ollie, who came in and did a really good job until he got out, to be honest with you. He was looking great until that point. So he's the only guy that I would look at in that batting slot. Yeah, all set on that one. From the bowlers, let's go into the first team, which will be Adelaide Strikers. So with them, what we're looking at here is Henry Thornton at 102k. The guy I think you want, if you want to save a bit of cash and maybe downgrade someone, then he's going to be the play. Pretty simply there. On that front, 102k. Should do a really, really solid job. You see, you got 2 wickets on the weekend. It may not be the same every week, but he gets 2 cracks at it this week. And and then obviously another couple of cracks in round 4 as well. So that's going to be fun. That's the way I'd be looking to play it this week, is make sure you do get Henry Thornton in. And I own him personally at the moment. We'll see how it goes. Matt Short, we've obviously spoke about. Lloyd Pope, I think in this scenario, I'm probably saving the 15k and going for Cam Boyce, even though, Boyce only got the 26. Popey bowled pretty well before that last over, unfortunately for him. But those guys will both continue to play and be very important. The only one to have a look at potentially is Doggett, but I do think we may only see him for the one game in the round. So something to have a think about and have a look at yourself on that front there. Very, very interesting how that one's going to play out. So that's the Adelaide Strikers there. Just a couple of guys to look at, especially on that cheaper range at 130 and below. Brisbane Heat, they are next. And Xavier Bartlett, we just need to see what happens with him and the Boxing Day test. If he's going to be in that squad, then we can't have him around. But that does spell good things for Spencer Johnson. So I think you wait until next week for all of these Brisbane bowlers. You could select any of them, to be fair. But you're looking at Walter, as I said, as the big guy, and then probably Spencer Johnson across that week there. Hobart, Nathan Ellis, just wanted to shout out him. He was absolutely spectacular last night with the bat and the ball. 2 for 3 at one point off a couple of overs and yeah, just carried their batting lineup there. Riley Meredith did pick up 1 wicket, same with Billy Stanlake, and then Chowdhury, wait again till he gets a bit cheaper and see what happens on that front. But Ellis was spectacular. Don't buy him now though. From the Renegades bowlers, it's going to be hard to sell Zampa just at the price, I think, especially when he's going to play every game. Use him as a loop next week. You're not going to miss out on too much, likely. And obviously that second game was just a pace bowler friendly domination. So yeah, there was a bit going on, and the batting was not very good. So yeah, he didn't have to do too much there, but still picked up that wicket at the end, which was helpful for his not losing as much cash. You can hold Rogers, you can hold Ferguson O'Neill. Richardson might be a little bit too cheap to sell at this point, and then you can decide what you want to do with Sutherland. From the Stars, I think, yeah, we spoke about it. Most of them are all dual guys, but guys like Adam Milne can be sold now. He's not going to be there post this round, so I think use his 106k to sell. I just don't think you want any bowlers from this side, so we'll move on very, very quickly. And then the Perth team, I do think, yeah, Connolly's probably first priority, and then there's some risk around Richardson. I still think he's an absolutely tremendous pick. I do own him. I hope he plays both games. Berendorf probably number 1 pick, then Jai, then Lance, I think at this point. In terms of the bowlers, I just probably go with that way. If Jason picks up a bag, then that's awesome. But Lance Morris is there at 148k. I think he's a really solid pick. He had a really, really big round last year, and then so did Ashton Agar as well. So I have been looking at Agar at the 123k mark. Got 40 on the weekend, bounced back from his injury, which is nice. And then Andrew Tye at 137 as well is easily a guy you could slot in. He just didn't bowl his 4th over, which was a bit frustrating for owners of him in that one. Expect him to get 3 to 4 most weeks, could alternate with 3, depending on who bowls best. I don't know if Cooper Conley's going to bowl the couple every week. He did get the wicket, didn't bowl his best. Agar was better, and they have so many quicks that dominate, so it's interesting how that one's going to go. But there will be games where if Richardson does get rested, or if they lose one of their bowlers, that he will become more of a main guy, and you'll need him in. You'll want him in your side for that reason. But yeah, all of these guys I think can do a job. I'm looking at Agar just at that little bit less of a price, with being able to get Matt Short, and yeah, it becomes very interesting. That's for sure. So you can make that decision. And then with the Sixers, Jack Edwards, as we said, Dwarshuis at 142 goes great. Abbott likely to be in the test setup. I'm not sure on that one. Again, just wait a week. Head and Kerr, just the injuries and stuff are the worry with him, but you do get a killer scene coming in this week. He's also a guy that you might want in your team next week. So it's like, oh, do you spend right up this week and get certain guys, or do you save a bit in the bank, or do you trade up? If I'm trading Seifert to another expensive guy, you can then use that expensive guy like Berendorf to go to a Haseen next week, or a Walter, these types of guys. So just be aware there are multiple players next week in Maxwell, Walter, Akil Haseen, potentially Dwarshuis, Abbott's, these types of guys, Edwards, if you don't own, that you're going to want next week. So there's always a couple of guys, and you need to have a look at which players you want to target in which rounds. So you may need to save cash or stash it in certain players and whatever else on a week-to-week basis. It's very, very interesting how you have to play it. That's for sure. So that's the Sixers. And then the Thunder to finish things off. Like Lockie Ferguson was spectacular. And same with Chris Green. Just a bit too much cash to spend right now. We may see Wes Agar coming to this side for Nathan McAndrews. So just a watch on him. And then Tanvi Sanger went really well also. We're going to leave it there, guys. I'm going to head off to work. But thanks so much for joining me for this one. I hope it helps you in deciding on your team. It's such a quick turnaround. So I've got to go and get things sorted with my side. But it does seem to me that I was just mucking around without looking at trading Seifert. And just with trying to clean up a little bit with Mackenzie, trying to trade him at that cheap price when I've got Webster to short with $500 in the bank, it's going to be very hard to move on from a cheap Mackenzie to get another double player and set myself up in a way where I'm scoring really well this week. That's kind of the worry. So yeah, interesting. I might have to wait the 1 week on Davies and muck around with a few other things. We'll see how it plays out. But thanks so much for being here, guys, and we'll catch you in the next video.